Hello, I'm Vic Johnson and you're watching Goals to Go. This show is about learning how to set your goals, and then I'll give you the tools and techniques you need to achieve them. Today we're talking about another step in the goal setting process, and it's my favorite step. This is the part I really love. The ancient Roman Marcus Aurelius said, "Dream big dreams. Only big dreams have the power to move men's souls." And that's what we're talking about today, dreaming big dreams. Why do big dreams help goal achievement? Well, stop and think about what it's like your first day of vacation. You're getting ready to go on vacation. The alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning. Now, during the week, it may go off at 5:30 and you have to get up and go to work. What do you do on those days? You reach over and hit the snooze button, or you pull the covers up over your head. But on vacation day, you bound out of bed. You've got all types of energy and enthusiasm because you're going on a trip or you're going somewhere special for vacation. That's how big dreams are. They give you power. They give you enthusiasm. For all the obstacles that you're going to encounter, for all the things that are not going to go according to plan, big dreams will make up for all of that with the energy and enthusiasm. Small dreams have no power. There's nothing at all about a small dream that's going to pull you through an obstacle. Stop and think about it. If you set a goal, for instance, to go out and increase your salary by 10% of whatever it is. Say you make $100,000 a year and you set a goal to increase your salary by $10,000. That's less than $1,000 a month. Based on the lifestyle that you have at $100,000, that's not a lot of money. That's not a big dream. That's not something that's going to have a lot of power to it. That's not something that when the first obstacle comes up, that's going to give you the energy to go through the obstacle. But now what if you had a goal to make $250,000 or a goal to make $500,000 and the most you'd ever made is $100,000? If you stopped and thought about the things that you could do at $500,000, what are some things you could do differently? Those are some big dreams. Those are the kind of things that could really motivate you in a way that you've never been motivated before. Big dreams give us something to aim for that's hard to miss. It's easy to miss a small dream. Not very difficult at all. Are you challenged by fear or procrastination? Most of us are. I can tell you I've identified two reasons behind fear and procrastination in almost every case. And one of those is the dream. If you don't have a very big dream, you're going to procrastinate. Who gets excited about a small dream? If you don't have a very big dream, you're going to let fear overcome you. You may let fear overcome you anyway, but with a big dream, with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm behind a big dream, you're a whole lot more likely to overcome fear and procrastination. In fact, if you take and put belief with fear and procrastination, it becomes very, very powerful. I don't think you can be stopped with those two elements. You know, Napoleon Hill says in the classic book Think and Grow Rich that belief and desire are the beginning of all achievement. Well, desire is nothing more than a big dream. In fact, he calls it white-hot desire. In order to have white-hot desire, you've got to have a big dream. If you take and you match up fear against a big dream and someone who believes in it, you'll have all the reasons in the world to move through that. If you stop and think about procrastination, if you really believe that that big dream is out there waiting for you, you're not going to be as likely to procrastinate. That's the power of a big dream. That's what we can do so much differently whenever we adopt big dreams. Maybe you've lived your life up to this point in time and you've held your dreams small purposely. I used to do that. I didn't want to get my hopes up. I didn't want to think, oh no, what if I don't get that? Maybe I'll tone it down some. Maybe I'll bring it down to a little bit lower level. Well, when we come back, I'm going to tell you about the real life Indiana Jones. He's a big dreamer. You don't want to miss this. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Goals to Go. I'm Vic Johnson. I've been talking about dreaming big dreams. A big dream adds life to your life. It really adds a texture to your life that's incredible. You know, I was on a plane a number of years ago. I was reading a story about a young 15-year-old boy. That story influenced my life in a major way. This is a story about a 15-year-old who had overheard his parents speaking with another adult, and the other adult was talking about how discouraged he was with his life. And he was talking about how frustrated he was. And he said, you know, I wish I was John's age again. If I was John's age again, talking about the son, if I was John's age again, I'd do it all differently. Well, this young 15-year-old, he heard that, and I guess it was the angst in the adult's voice or something. And he said, you know, I'm not going to grow up and be like that. I'm going to do my life differently. And what a wise 15-year-old he was. He took out a yellow legal pad, sat down at his kitchen table, and he created a list of things that he wanted to do when he grew up. He wrote across the top, "My life list." There were 127 things he put on that list. As of today, he's achieved about 109 of them, plus 400 other ones that he set along the way. Now here's just a sample of some of the things that John Goddard has achieved. He's climbed almost every major peak in the world. He's been to the top of Kilimanjaro. He's been to the top of Ararat. He's been to all the great peaks. He's been down all the great rivers. He's been down the Amazon. He's been down the Congo. And he was the first person to ever go the 4,200-mile length of the Nile River, the longest river in the world. It was the #1 goal on his list when he was 15 years old. The LA Times, when he did that, named him the real-life Indiana Jones. He's learned how to speak French, Spanish, and Arabic. He's been to 122 countries. He's lived with over 200 tribes. And I could go on and on and on. I had the great pleasure to meet the world's #1 goal achiever in January. And it's so incredible the things that he's done in his life. It's so incredible the richness of his life. And I asked him, I had a suspicion, I asked him, John, what's your secret? What enabled you as a 15-year-old to take this list of 127 things, many of which are just in themselves major goals? I mean, if you retrace the steps of Marco Polo, wouldn't that be a great life goal? If that was the only thing you ever did, that would be magnificent. That's one of his 127. I said, John, what enabled you to do that? And he gave me the secret. Are you ready? 2 things. John Goddard had some big dreams and he wrote them down. That's it. That's the secret. He had some big dreams and he wrote them down. I was talking earlier about the power of big dreams. And that's what John operated with. He always had something in front of him that created energy and enthusiasm. He always had something big in front of him to work towards. And he had them written down. Now, I don't know how many times you've heard that. I heard it for 20 years. Write your goals down. Did I write them down? No. In fact, when I speak to an audience today about goal setting, you know, I don't even ask them to raise their hands if they don't have their goals written down, because I know most people won't raise their hands, because I know most people don't. But it's so simple. Now, here's the amazing thing. Brian Tracy says you have a 1,000% greater chance of achieving your goals if they're written down. A 1,000% chance of achieving your goals if you write them down. Now, what that says to me is if you don't write them down, you got a 1 in 10 chance to succeed. A 1 in 10 chance to succeed. That's the power of written goals. So, you got a big dream, you got written goals, you put those 2 things together, and you can live a life like John Goddard. I'll go into detail later about how he helped mine. But up next, I'll talk about some ways to make you unstoppable on top of having a big dream. So stay tuned. We're coming back to Goals to Go. I've been talking about dreaming big dreams as being an important part of the goal-setting process. In fact, I believe it may be the most important part of the process. I know it's the most fun part of the process. It is to me anyway. Been talking about how a big dream gives you all kinds of energy and enthusiasm. A big dream will make you unstoppable. It'll bulletproof you against anything that's liable to come against you as you go for it. And the best example of that is a guy named Maxie Fowler. When Maxie was 36 years old, he took the California bar exam for the very first time, and he failed. He took it again, and he failed. And again, and again, and again. Every time he took it, he failed. He took it in Los Angeles, he took it in San Francisco, he went down to San Diego. He took it everywhere in California they offered the California bar exam, and every time he took it, Maxie Fowler failed. He took it when his children were young and still at home, and he failed. When his own sons grew up, went to law school, and then sat and took the California bar exam, Maxie took it with him. He failed. One of his sons opened a law office. Maxie went to work as a clerk in his office, took the California bar, and he failed. At an age when most people are thinking about retiring, Maxie Fowler is still taking the California bar exam. After 25 years, more than 200 days of his life spent in testing rooms, more than $50,000 spent in testing fees, Maxie Fowler took the California bar exam for the 48th time, and he passed. He was 61 years old. Now stop and ask yourself the question, how many people have taken the bar exam anywhere the first time, failed, and never taken it again, or taken any kind of exam? CPAs, realtors, medical, whatever. How many people have taken it 3 or 4 times, failed, and never taken it again? How many people, have gone and done anything one time, failed, and never attempted it again? Maxie Fowler had a dream so big, it was so important to him, it was so real to him, that he just kept on. He became unstoppable. Now you got to know that Maxie went through the same thing that we go through. Don't you know that after about the 15th or 20th notice that came to the door, he goes out to the post office box outside his house, he gets it, he brings the letter back inside, he sits down, he opens it at the table. His wife is there looking over his shoulder as he looks and reads again that he's failed. And don't you know, she said, "Maxie, maybe you weren't cut out to be a lawyer. Maybe you'd be a better accountant, Maxie. Maybe there's something else you should do." Don't you know that probably occurred? Don't you know that Maxie's friends, after 20 times, 21 times, they're going, "Maxie, you really ought to think about doing something differently. You need to get a life. Maxie, they lock people up for less than this. You got something here you're hung up about. You need to find..." In other words, there were obstacles along the way, and they began to get bigger and bigger perhaps as he went on. Don't you know he had to deal each time he went in there with the doubt about whether or not he could really do it? Of course he did. He's human like all of us. But his dream was so big to him. It was so powerful. And that's what a big dream can do for you. Not to say that other people don't have big dreams and they fail and then they don't try again. Why? Because probably the dream wasn't backed up with belief. See, Maxie had 2 things. Again, the Napoleon Hill formula, belief and desire. Those 2 things are impossible to get around. You've got a big dream now. You don't know whether or not you're ready to go out and go for the goals that will take you to that big dream. Stop and look at your belief. There are a lot of things that you can do to change your belief. Go back to the self-talk, the limiting thoughts and the limiting words that you have. There's ways to reprogram your belief. But the important thing is not to give up on the dream. The important thing is to take the dream, in fact, and make it even more real to you. You see, if when you begin to doubt whether or not you're going to ever reach the dream that you have, the thing to do now is not to withdraw. The thing to do is not to try to build a wall between you and the dream, hoping that maybe you don't think about it as much. No, now's the time to really turn it up, what I call pouring kerosene on the fire. Whatever it is you may have a dream to do, surround yourself with it. Become obsessed with it. There's a great book Bob Proctor talks about, written many years ago, called Magnificent Obsession. And it's healthy now for a season, not for your whole life, but for a season. It's healthy to get magnificently obsessed with a dream. Go for a dream during the season and then bring balance back to your life. You'll change a lot about your life. You'll change a lot about the people in your life because of the big dream that you reached. Maxie Fowler's a practicing attorney in California today, has been for a number of years, has been recognized by the California Bar Association. He's helped a lot of people because he reached his dream. Not just the fact that he's provided great legal advice, but do you know how many people that Maxie Fowler's helped because he did achieve his dream? We'd have never heard about Maxie Fowler had he stopped at number 47 or number 46 or number 45. But instead, today, Maxie Fowler's been a great example to us of how important having a big dream is in the goal-setting process. Again, it's a process from beginning to end. All parts are critical, but this part is so important. This part can mean so much to whether you really get what you want, because as we go back to our opening lines, big dreams have power, small dreams don't. Coming up, I'll teach you how to build your own list of dreams. So stick around. This is Goals to Go. Welcome back to Goals to Go. I'm Vic Johnson. I've been talking about some pretty amazing people and how they accomplish some pretty amazing goals. But now I want to teach you how to make your goals become reality, and they can be just as big and just as amazing. One thing that I'd encourage you to do is to do what some of our students do. We have a process called the Champions Club, and it's a year-long process, and they go through this entire goal-setting process and over the year accomplish some pretty amazing things. They found that one of the most helpful parts of that process is to sit down and build a dream list of 100 dreams. Mark Victor Hansen says build 101 dreams. But sit down with nothing more than a yellow legal pad, if nothing else, as my friend John Goddard did. Sit down where you can get quiet, where you can begin to think about your life and about the things that you've always wanted to do, and begin to build a list. It might help if you have some what we call dream triggers and dream starters. These are just things to make you think, what are some things you'd like to do in the past? What are some hobbies that you have? These are just simply things you can read. They'll guide you in different thoughts, and you'll be able to create dreams from them. So if you'd like a free copy of Dream Triggers and Dream Starters, go to www.goalstogo.com/dreambig and pick up a copy there. Then simply sit down and then begin to build a list. And I'll tell you, it'll be intimidating to begin with. If you're a person that's like me, who, we got a few miles on us and we've had a few discouragements in our life, there's been a few times when we met with maybe even disaster, and life hasn't always been as good as we'd like for it to have been. It may be that you may have given up. You may have buried them. You may have put them aside. That's the thing we do to protect ourselves. It's time to uncover those dreams. What are the things you wanted to do back when you thought you could do anything? You go into a young man's room. I always like to use this as an example, because you go into a young man's room and you look on the walls, you usually see pictures, and if they're not X-rated pictures, they're probably pictures of cars. What kind of cars are they on the wall? Usually you see Lamborghinis. You see $100,000 sports cars. You might see today, you might see a Hummer or some other similar type expensive SUV. You don't see a Volkswagen. You don't see a little economy car on the wall. Why? Because they haven't learned, they can't have them. And that's the problem that happens with us as we go through life. We meet with things that cause us to believe that we can't have them. Go back and build a list of what you really want. You'll never get more than what you believe you can get, but you'll definitely not get it if you don't want it enough to sit down and write it out, put it on paper, begin to work for it as John Goddard did. I would teach you to honor your dreams. Next to my family, next to the relationships that I have in this world, the most important thing to me is my dreams. Because that's my life. That's what my life has become. Just simply living my dreams. I went through the exercise that I'm encouraging you to do, and I've been living my list. I took mine and I took a nice leather-bound Jim Rohn journal. Now, I don't use that Jim Rohn journal the way that Jim would encourage you to use it. I use it as a place to house my dreams. That's where I keep my list. I honor those dreams because they mean so much to me. So keep your dreams in a place of honor. A friend of mine, Tina Downey, has a great tool called My Success Box. It's a beautiful box, a wooden box that you can keep your dreams in. Then you'll always have a different feeling about them. Be on the lookout for new dreams as you go along. I've got a great book called 1,000 Places to Visit Before You Die. You can buy it at a bookstore. I've seen it in Barnes & Nobles. I've seen it on Amazon. 1,000 Places to Visit Before You Die. I just check off the places in that book. I found out I'd already been to quite a few of them, but now I look on my dream list, I look at things and places I've wanted to go, I go look at the book, and in the book it will tell you different things to see while you're there. And I'll tell you, already in the several years I've had it, I've done some very interesting things. Finally, as James Allen says, dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, so shall you become. Now, you've got your goals. You can do this. I know you can. Thanks for watching. This is Vic Johnson, and thank you.